In this video, I'm showing you 40 cinematic camera movements, push-pull, lens focus, creative movements, and much more. Because here's the problem, AI video tools understand specific words. And if you don't know these words, you're just gambling, losing money and time. So after hundreds of generations, I created the ultimate cinematic camera movement guide with the exact prompt that AI recognizes. While keeping the exact character consistency during the whole sequence, you're finally gonna understand what emotion each creates, when to use them, all organized in 6 categories. Plus, I'm giving access to a Notion library with everything. In this video, we're gonna see how to do all of that, so let's dive in. So what most people get wrong is that they use the wrong movement and they completely destroy the emotion that they want the viewer to feel. I learned that the hard way, because after generating hundreds of random prompts saying stuff like cinematic camera movements, every time it was a gamble and it was completely chaos. Sometimes it worked, but most time it didn't work. I had no idea why and I was losing money and time. Then I learned the specific vocabulary, the exact terms that AI models are trained on, and everything changed. And to simplify the whole process for you guys, I spent the last 3 days building an entire framework and a Notion library. So it's a database with over 40 camera movements, ready to use prompts for each ones, and most importantly, an emotion and context guide that tells you when to use each angle and movements. So as you can see, movements are separated into 6 categories: push-pull, orbit and rotates, vertical, lateral, lens and focus, and advanced and creatives. So once you understand these 6 categories, you will always know what movement to use. You would think, oh, I need to create intimacy here, and immediately you will know that this is a push-pull movement that I need to select. I also added a complete guide with all the camera movements and the visuals and the prompts so that it can be even more understandable for you guys. And by the way, it works for both free and paid tools. So if you want to grab these tools, the link is in the description below and the pinned comment. Alright, so now let's break down all the 40 movements with the examples. Category 1, push-pull movements. So the principle here is pretty simple. Moving towards something creates intimacy and intensity. Moving away from it creates distance and reveal the context of the scene. So let's start with the most fundamental movement of all filmmaking, a slow dolly in. So the camera moves slowly toward the subject's face. So this can be used when the character, for example, has a realization or when something important is about to happen. It's kind of like the camera saying, pay attention to this because it's going to be important. Now we flip the speed and we go to the fast dolly in. It's also called a rush. So it's when the camera moves rapidly toward the subject's face, and this creates urgency, this creates shocks, creates a sudden realization. It's a jump scare, an action beat. It's kind of like something went wrong at this moment. Now let's reverse it to the slow dolly out. So the camera moves slowly backwards, away from the subject, and immediately the feeling changes. Now we're creating distance, revealing the context around the subject. For example, we can show that the character is alone in a big space and showing his isolation. It can also be used when you want to create emotional distance between the viewer and the character. Now here's when it gets interesting. The vertigo effect, also called the dolly zoom. So the camera physically goes backwards while it zooms in. It creates kind of a unique camera shot and a bit of a psychological tension. By the way, for the history, Hitchcock made this famous, and you can use it for like dramatic realization, for example. Now let's get into the extreme with scale and get into the extreme macro zoom. So the camera zooms into the subject's face into microscopic level, revealing the skin, the texture, the details. And this is for hyperfocus, for intimacy. And the opposite of that is a cosmic hyperzoom. The camera zooms out from the street level to space. This is to show the scale of the environment or your character. It's kind of humbling, philosophical, and a bit epic. By the way, you might be wondering, how do I create all of these movements with AI? So let me quickly show you my workflow. So I'm using Filmmaker. It's an all-in-one AI platform that gives you access to over 300 AI tools and the best AI models in one place. You can generate images with Banana Pro, ChatGPT Image, Flux, and more. Then animate those images with video models like VO3, Kling, Seedance, and others, all in the same workspace. By the way, if you want to use it, the link is in the description below. So my workflow is pretty simple. The first step is just to create the foundation image. As you can see, every time I started with my first image, which is usually the character that I want to create and the environment in which he will live. And the key here is to create a strong foundation image, because this is where we're going to base everything for our creations. As you can see here for this first example, I created different based image. So what I like to do is create a close-up shot with the Filmmaker and then create kind of a middle shot where we see her in her environment. So in Filmmaker, it's pretty simple. You go to image generator here, then you select either text to image or image to image. So in my case, I will go to image to image. Then I select the model. So like I said, Banana Pro for me, but as you can see, you have a lot of them. You have pretty much every one of it. Then I just put my input image, the prompt, then you have the settings. So for me, it's going to be 16:9. how much images I want. Generally, I go with like 4 images so I can have a bit of a variation. And quick tip here for the resolution, don't go for 4K, go for 2K, because if you create a 4K image here, you're gonna get a 20 megabyte file, which is a bit heavy. And then if you want to animate it, the file has to be under 15 megabytes in VO3 or in Kling. So you will have to use another tool to downsize it and you will lose a lot of quality. So instead, I will highly recommend you to generate the image like this one in 2K and then upscale it. And what I love about Filmmaker is that you have the tool of upscaling it directly inside. So as you can see here, I have an image upscaler. So as you can see here, I just selected my image, I clicked on 4K and then generate. And this is how I get a 4K image around 2 megabytes, which is way less than 20 megabytes. So it's going to be easier for like video generation later on. Then the step 2 is to choose the movement that I want to apply to my still image. So this is where the Notion templates comes in, because I just have to choose the emotion that I want to recreate, select the proper camera movement, and just grab the prompt and put it into my tool. So as you can see in this case, in Filmmaker, you just go to video generator, you select image to video, then you select the model that you want. So you have a lot of models, like I said, as you can see, all of them are here. For me, I prefer to use Kling 01 for this example. I use the first frame and last frame feature, but I will go into details later in the video why I use this specific feature. And then I just added the prompt that I took from the Notion template, added here, so as you can see, it's an extreme macro zoom, select the duration, so 5 seconds, and just click generate. And the step 4 is to iterate if needed, because let's be honest, every generation will not be perfect. You'll probably get 90% right using my tools, but sometimes it's really interesting to adjust the prompt a little bit. You can adjust the prompt by adding some terms like smooth or slow to control the speed. By the way, I did a whole video explaining this whole process, so if you want to understand the process in details, I'm going to put the link above and in the description below. Now let's go to category 2, which is orbital movements. The principle is really simple. Basically, by circling around the subject, you can show all angles. First movement is called orbit 180. The camera moves in a smooth circle around the subject. So this is your cinematic showcase. You can use it, for example, for character introduction or showing off a design or a costume. It's saying this subject deserves to be seen in different angles. Now let's speed it up and let's go to the fast 360 orbit. The camera spins completely around the subject. You can use that for power-up movements or for character transformation, for example. And then there is the elegant version of it, the slow cinematic arc. The camera moves in gentle wide curve around the subject, slowly revealing their profile. This is the beauty shot, the thoughtful moments, but be careful, don't overuse orbit movements because they have to be intentional. Then category 3, vertical movements. Here the principle is simple. Moving up reveals power and scale, moving out creates landing and intimacy. So let's start with the big one, which is a crane up, also called the high angle reveal. So the camera rises vertically, revealing the landscapes, and this is your establishing shot for showing the scale of the environment or for an opening sequence, for example. Now let's reverse it with a crane down, also called the landing. So the camera descends vertically towards the subject, and here you go to epic to like an intimacy with the character. So again, you can use it for character introduction into the world. By the way, for all these shots, I'm still using Filmmaker AI, and as you can see, I'm using the first and last frame feature. So I'm using Kling 01, and on the first frame, you can see a top-down view, and then you see just a medium shot of the guy. And in the prompt, I just added crane down landing, camera descends vertically down toward the subject, which you can find also in the Notion library, and click on generate, and this is what I got. So I'm using this method to be even more accurate into my camera movements. Now let's talk about pedestal move, which are kind of similar, but a bit different, you can see. So let's start off with pedestal up. The entire camera body rises from waist level to eye level. This is used if you want to show a character standing up, for revelation or like power moves. And the opposite is obviously pedestal down. The camera lowers from eye level to the ground. Again, this can be used when a character is sitting down or when it's kind of like failing. This is kind of a feeling of diminishing instead of like growing up. And then you have the tilt moves. The camera tilts upward from the subject's feet to their face, revealing the character and showing presence. You also have the tilt down, which is the opposite. The camera tilts down from the face to the feet. And then you have a creative one, which is the worm's eye tracking. The camera is at ground level, looking up, following the subject. In this case, the character looks massive, powerful, intimidating. It's like as if we are a tiny creature looking at something big. Then let's go to category 4, lateral movements. Here the principle is to create a companionship with the character, moving with him, not watching from a distance or intimacy, but with it. So the first one is a camera track left. The camera will just slide laterally on the left side, revealing an environment or a character. It's nice because it's kind of like elegant, smooth, and cinematic. Obviously, they have the opposite on the right side, which is called the lateral track right, but this is where lateral movements get powerful. You have the side tracking, also called parallel. So the subject is walking and the camera is following them at the same speed, showing their profile. So this is walking with your character, not ahead of them, not before them, with them. Then category 5, lens and focus. Here the principle is what you focus on is the important thing that you need to pay attention to. The first one is smooth optical zoom in. The lens zooms slowly toward the subject. It's a bit similar to a dolly shot, but here the camera isn't moving, it's just the lens. It's less intimate than a dolly, but still effective if you want to build tension, for example. Now, if you reverse it, you have the smooth optical zoom out. Here the lens is going to zoom out slowly from the subject, again creating distance, for example. And now let's make it aggressive with the snap zoom, which is also called the crash zoom. And as you can see, it's a rapid zoom toward the subject. It's often used for dramatic tension or if you want to make a joke, for example. Then you have reveal from blur, also called the fade in. So the video starts completely out of focus and gets slowly into a sharp focus. It's kind of an equivalent, if you want, of opening your eyes and the character kind of like getting into consciousness. Now here's an interesting one, which is called the rack focus. The subject starts sharp focus while the background is blurry. And then the focus shifts while the subjects become blurry and the background becomes sharp. It's kind of like revealing what the character sees if you want. And then category 6, advanced and creative movements. These are your epic movements, your dynamic actions, the wow shots if you want. The first one is a drone flyover. It's a high altitude flight over the landscape. It establishes the environment, the mountains, the desert, whatever, the city. Then you have the epic drone reveal, which is a pedestal movement combined with a tilt, and it reveals the landscape dramatically. Then the top-down God eyes view, so the camera is positioned directly overhead, pointing straight down. So it's a bit of an objective view. You're looking at the subject like they are on a map, and it's often used to do kind of a transition, if you will. Then you have the FPV drone aggressive dive. This is a fast descent towards your target, and I love this one because it's kind of like a godlike movement. Then you have the handheld dynamic style. So the camera has natural shake and movement, like someone is holding it, if you will. You can use this for action or for raw moments. Then you have the whip pan. The camera whipped violently to the side with extreme motion blur. Again, this is perfect for like quick transitions. You also have the Dutch angle, where the camera is tilt. You can use that for like violent shots or psychological moments, or like when something is kind of like a bit wrong. Again, this one is quite powerful, so don't overuse it. Then you have the barrel shot, where the camera is going to rotate 360 degrees on its forward axis while moving. It's for high octane action, aerial sequences, or for maximum dynamism. Then you have the vortex inception shot. So the camera spins while the environment wraps around it and kind of like creates a spiral. So it's kind of like as if you are in a dream, or you can create psychological tension with it. Then you have the reveal from behind. The camera starts blocked from the foreground object, for example, and slides laterally to just reveal a subject. It's a classic reveal technique, which I love because it's really cinematic and smooth. Then you have the through shot. I love this one because the camera goes through a door or a window, for example, revealing the subject. Then you have the leading shot, which is also called the backward tracking. The subject is simply walking toward the camera and the camera moves backward at the same speed. Then the following shot, which is also called a tracking shot, by the way. So the subjects walk away as the camera is following them. Then you have the POV, simply the first person view. Now you are the character, so it's like maximum emotion with the viewer. Then you have the time manipulation, for example, the hyperlapse, also called the time lapse. So the camera can be moving or not, and the time is sped up. So this is perfect if you want to compress a journey or if you want to see the passage of time. And then you have the bullet time, also called the matrix effect or the frozen movement. So the time slows dramatically while the camera is slowly moving. Again, this is for critical movement or like action scenes. Alright, so now that you have the 40 movements, which one do you choose? So I created a whole framework if you want to know. Step 1, what emotion are you creating? If you need intimacy or tension, use push-pull movement. If you need a showcase, use orbital. If you need to show power or scale, use vertical. If you want companionship, use lateral. If you need focus, use lens and focus movement. If you need epic scope and dynamic action, use advanced movement. Step 2, match movement to story beat. So for opening shot, use drone reveals, cranes up, cosmic zoom. For character introduction, use orbit, tilt up, slow arcs. For emotional peak, use dolly in, vertigo effect, bullet time. For action, use handheld, FPV dives, whip pan, barrel rolls. For contemplation, use slow arcs, side tracking. And for closing shots, use cranes up, dolly out, hyperlapse. And finally, step 3, you have to consider the subject. If your subject is static, use orbital, push-pull, or vertical movements. If your subject is moving, use tracking, following, or parallel movements. And if you're showing an environment, use drone, crane, or lateral movements. Because here's the key, don't choose a movement because it looks cool. Choose them because they create the feeling that you want to display to the viewer. By the way, I added this image to the Notion library and to the full guide, so you will have everything in it. So if you haven't grabbed it yet, you have the link in the description below. And if you want to know how to use Nano Banana for cinematic shot, I did a whole video on it. I'm just going to put the link here. In the meantime, I want to thank you guys because we reached like 1K subscriber, and this is kind of like crazy for this channel. By the way, if you want a quick chat with me of like 15 minutes, I have a whole form in the description below if you want to fill it. I hope you guys like this one. I'm going to release a video every week, so don't forget to subscribe, like and comment, follow me on Twitter and Instagram, and I see you in the next one. Peace out.